My sister committed bank fraud to steal from me, but my parents blamed me for reporting her. So I told them, next time she breaks the law, call the cops yourselves. I'm Jack, a 30-year-old. Anyone who knows me would tell you I've been on my own since I turned 18. I paid for college, worked incredibly hard, and never asked my parents for a dime. But apparently that doesn't guarantee a peaceful life. No, it just means I'm the default family problem solver. It all started with a call from my mom, Carol. She rarely calls just to chat. If her name pops up on my phone, it means something's wrong, and she expects me to fix it. So when I saw her name, I knew it wasn't good. I answered, and she immediately launched into awkward small talk, which is so unlike her. "Hey Jack, how's work? Still doing finance stuff?" she asked, as if she hadn't ignored my career for the past decade. Curious, I played along. "Hey, Mom, still in finance? What's up?" That's when she dropped the bomb. "Your sister's in trouble?" I'd love to say I was surprised, but I wasn't. My sister, Karen, 27, has a long history of causing chaos and expecting others to clean up her messes. These haven't been minor inconveniences. They've been full-blown disasters that always land squarely on my shoulders. Take the time she stole. My car without permission, only to wreck it while texting. She called me in a panic, sobbing, not knowing what to do. Like an idiot, I dropped everything to help. I dealt with the insurance, paid the deductible, and even let her off the hook for the damage because she promised she'd never do it again. But she did. Or the time she convinced me to co-sign for her first apartment, claiming she just needed a little boost to get started. 3 months later, she stopped paying rent, dodged the landlord, and left me to face the consequences. I spent months rebuilding my credit while she moved back home with our parents, acting like it was no big deal. Not only does she make mistakes, but she's never held accountable. Every time she screws up, someone, usually me, has to step in and fix it while she plays the victim. And the worst part? She never even says thank you. It's like she believes the world owes her a safety net. So when my mom called to tell me Karen was in danger, I didn't worry or feel concerned. I was exhausted from being dragged into her messes, tired of always facing the fallout from her recklessness, to be honest. I was shocked it had taken this long for something major to happen. I sighed, dreading what I was about to hear. "What kind of trouble?" I asked, not because I wanted to help, but because I needed to gauge how catastrophic this one would be. Then she hit me with it. Karen had accumulated $43,500 in debt. $40,000? I had to repeat it in my head to process it. How does someone even get to that point? Apparently she'd spent money she didn't have again. This time, however, she owed more than just credit card companies. She'd borrowed from some shady characters, the kind you can't just ignore as bills pile up. And now they were after her. Want you to wear what I want to want you to what would retro what I would rely with the word why would we whatever we the responsible sibling, the guy who could always fix the unfixable. It didn't matter that Karen made mistakes. That wasn't the issue. The problem was my failure to rush in and help. "You need to help her," she pressed, as if my role as the family ATM was already decided. I sat there for a second, letting it sink in. "How exactly can I help?" I asked. "You've done so well for yourself, Jack. You can just pay it off for her," she said casually, as if she were inviting me to stop by for takeout. I let out a quick laugh. Not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, I didn't borrow that money. Why should this be my problem? Not paying anything. The silence that followed was heavy, as if she was just processing that I had said no. And she snapped, launching into full-blown guilt mode. She's your sister. Family helps each other. You want her to get hurt? Is that what you want? Her words were quick, almost frantic, as if she couldn't comprehend why I wasn't instantly leaping to Karen's rescue. It wasn't a request. It was an accusation, as if my refusal was the real problem, not Karen's choices. I took a deep breath, trying not to lose my temper. Mom, I've helped her before, multiple times. And what does she do? Blows it all on designer bags, fancy vacations, and God knows what else. She doesn't take responsibility for anything because you and Dad have always bailed her out. I'm not doing it this time. But logic apparently didn't register. She's struggling, Jack, she retorted. She's not like you. She's not strong enough to handle this? Struggling, I repeated. She's reckless. She spends money she doesn't have, and now she's deep in with some shady people. And instead of dealing with it herself, she's expecting me to swoop in and clean up her mess again. She's your sister, Mom snapped. Family looks out for each other. No, Mom, I replied, my voice firm. Families don't take advantage of each other. This isn't me turning my back on Karen. This is me refusing to enable her bad decisions. She needs to grow up and face the consequences for once. Mom wasn't having it. Do you want her to get hurt, Jack? You want that on your conscience? Look, I'm not heartless. I don't want anything bad to happen to Karen, but let's be real. She's an adult, a 27-year-old adult who knew exactly what she was getting into when she borrowed that money. That's exactly what I told my mother, but she wouldn't listen. She's not as strong as you, Jack, she said. You've always had it together, and she hasn't. You can afford to help her. It's the least you can do after all we've done for you. Done for me? I shot back. Like what? Making me pay rent the minute I turned 18, refusing to help with my college tuition. Yeah, thanks for all that support, Mom. She fell silent for a moment and came back swinging. If you don't help, we'll have no choice but to cut you off. Do you want that? I couldn't help but laugh. Cut me off from what? You don't support me? I've been on my own for over a decade. Your threats don't work on me. With that, I hung up. After that day, they all went silent. And while I wish I could tell you that was the end of it, it was only the beginning. The quiet didn't last. I guess I underestimated my mother's resolve when she wanted something. After I shut her and my father down, they switched tactics. If the direct approach didn't work, they'd try to guilt me into submission. And when I say they went all out, I mean it. Initially, it was just simple text messages like, I just don't understand how you can let this happen to your sister. Then, as days passed, they became more dramatic. Do you know the kind of people Karen is dealing with? They're dangerous, Jack. I can't sleep at night worrying about her. I ignored them at first. I simply didn't have the energy for the manipulation, but they didn't stop. Mom, on the other hand, went above and beyond with her voicemails, and let me tell you, she has a talent for sounding like she's on the verge of tears when she isn't. Jack, she wailed in one, Karen might not make it out of this if you don't help. I don't think I can live with myself if something happens to her. It felt like a master class in guilt tripping. If there were trophies for this, she'd be a 3-time champion by now. Then my father, Edward, decided to get involved. He's usually a background player in these family dramas, but not this time. He left me a voicemail that started off calmly enough. Hey Jack, just calling to check in. But suddenly, things shifted. Look, I know your mom can come on a bit strong, but this is serious. Karen's in deep, and we can't fix this without you. You've always been the strong one, the dependable one. Don't let us down now. That remark. The dependable one really got under my skin. I've spent my entire life being dependable, and all it's earned me is more responsibility and less gratitude. Dependable doesn't mean I'm a doormat. They apparently missed that memo. But the guilt avalanche didn't end there. They decided to call in reinforcements from their extended family, from who knows where. I started hearing from my Uncle Greg, whom I hadn't spoken to in years. He called me out of the blue, as if we were best buddies. Hey Jack, long time no talk. How's life? I knew immediately why he was calling, but I let him ramble for a while before he got to the point. Family's important, he continued, in that overly sincere tone people use when they're about to say something they know you'll dislike. And Karen's just ... she's struggling. We all go through rough patches, and sometimes we need a little help. Greg, listen, I interrupted. Did my mom put you up to this? He laughed nervously, as if I'd caught him, while she might have mentioned. I didn't even let him finish. Look, I appreciate you reaching out, but I'm not paying Karen's debt. It's not my responsibility. You'd think that was the end of it, but no. The next day, it was my Aunt Janice, then my cousin Emily. They all used the same script. Karen's in trouble. She needs help, and I'm the only one who can provide it. Don't see why they were all so concerned about Karen. It's not like she was a helpless child who made an honest mistake. She's an adult who spends money like it's Monopoly money, then acts surprised when the bill comes due. What made it worse was that none of them even tried to understand my perspective. When I said I wasn't willing to drop $43,500 on someone else's scoops, they acted like I was speaking a foreign language. But she's your sister, they'd argue, as if that would change my mind. The worst part, however, was the smear campaign. My mother, in her infinite wisdom, decided that if guilt-tripping me directly was ineffective, she'd try to turn the rest of the family against me. She started telling everyone in the family group chat, which I had muted long ago, that I was selfish, ungrateful, and a total jerk. According to her, I had forgotten my roots and was too busy with my glamorous city life to care about my family. I found out when my cousin Caleb called. He's one of the few family members I actually get along with, and he filled me in. Dude, he exclaimed, Carol's been talking mad crap about you. She told Aunt Janice that you said Karen deserves whatever happens to her. I was furious, not because I cared what Janice thought, but because my mother was outright lying about me to make herself look like the victim. I told Caleb the truth. I had never said anything like that, and he believed me. Yeah, I figured she was exaggerating, he said. It's just messy, man. Messy doesn't even begin to describe it. But the real drama started when Karen decided to join the fray herself. Till then, she had been quiet, not a single text or call. I suspected she was embarrassed for once. Turns out she was just waiting for her moment to strike. When she did, it wasn't subtle. She texted me one night, and it wasn't a plea, but an accusation. I can't believe how selfish you're being, Jack. You know I'm in serious trouble, and you're just sitting there doing nothing. You're supposed to be my brother. Selfish. That was rich coming from her. Karen's entire life has been a string of terrible decisions with someone else cleaning up the messes. I didn't respond. Honestly, I didn't think it deserved one. The next morning, she upped the ante. You have the money. Stop acting like it's such a big deal. Just pay it off, and I'll pay you back when I can. She framed it like a reasonable solution, as if I were the unreasonable one for refusing to drop $43,500 to fix her mistake again. I didn't bother to reply. But that, of course, did not go over well. Went into full meltdown mode, sending me long, rambling texts about how I was abandoning her and how I'd never understand what it's like to struggle. And then, just a twist. The knife, she added. Mom and Dad always said you'd come around eventually. Guess they were wrong. That line hit differently, not because it made me reconsider anything, but because it reaffirmed what I had always suspected. This wasn't just Karen acting recklessly. My parents had been enabling her, convincing her that I would always be there to clean up her mess. I'd had enough by then. I stopped responding to texts, ignored phone calls, and focused solely on my own life. Just when I thought they couldn't sink any lower with the guilt trips, ambushes, and smear campaigns. I realized I had underestimated how far they were willing to go. My parents and Karen had played every card in their deck, or so I thought. It turned out they had one last card up their sleeve, and this one shattered any illusion I had about them not crossing the line. I received a call from my bank, and everything quickly devolved into total chaos. The bank's fraud department notified me of suspicious activity on my account. Apparently, someone tried to gain access using fake documents that didn't match their records. They attempted to change my contact information and withdraw funds, but the system flagged the transaction as suspicious and stopped it. While the bank couldn't provide exact details, they did say the documentation suggested it was someone close to me. Someone close to me? I didn't have to ask. Already knew. Karen. Who else could it be? The timing was too convenient. She had just texted me about her urgent situation, and when I refused to give in, this happened. I was boiling inside. Forging documents to access my account? That's not just desperate, it's criminal. Couldn't let this slide. That evening, I drove straight to Karen's place, my rage barely contained. Of course I didn't call. I was done. Being polite, she opened the door. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "You tried to steal from me," I stated, getting right to the point. Her face flickered for a split second before she crossed her arms. "I don't know what you're talking about." The audacity, I replied. "Don't even try that, Karen. The bank flagged your little stunt. They told me someone forged documents to access my account. Now, do you even realize how serious that is?" She let out an exaggerated sigh as if I was being overly dramatic. "Oh, relax, Jack. It's not like I actually got anything." I blinked, stunned by how easily she dismissed it. Relax? Are you seriously trying to defend this by saying you failed? "You tried to commit fraud, Karen. That's a crime." She shrugged, completely unconcerned. "What else was I supposed to do? You left me no choice. You refused to help me when I needed it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. No choice, Karen. You had every choice. You could have owned up to your mistakes, taken responsibility, and figured out how to fix this yourself. But instead, you thought stealing from me was the solution. She scowled. "Don't act all high and mighty. Mom and Dad said you'd never let me struggle. They told me you'd come around eventually if I pushed hard. Enough. I just had to wait for you to get over your little tantrum." I stood there, aghast. Little tantrum? That wasn't frustration bubbling in my chest. It was pure outrage. This wasn't just her being careless. This was years of my parents. Coddling her, feeding her delusions, and treating me like I only existed to clean up her messes. "Unbelievable," I muttered, more to myself than to her. "Do you even understand what you've done, Karen? You crossed a serious line." She rolled her eyes, doubling down instead of backing away. "I'm not the villain here, Jack. You are. You've turned your back on your family. If you'd just helped me in the first place, none of this would have happened. That was it." The last straw. I took a long breath, not to stay calm, but to ensure I didn't say anything I'd regret later. "I'm done," I murmured, turning toward the door. But before I left, I looked at her one last time. "If you ever try something like this again, I won't just cut you off. I'll make sure the cops know exactly what you did." "Grow up, Karen. You're not a child anymore." I didn't wait for her response. I returned to my car, my mind racing. How did it come to this? How had my family become so toxic that my own sister thought it was okay to steal from me and then blame me for it? I knew this was it. There was no going back from this. I needed to cut ties for good. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. My folks weren't about to let this go. Karen wasn't about to let this go. If they thought I was just going to roll over and accept it, they were sorely mistaken. And I was right. The next day, my mother called. I didn't pick up, but she did. "Leave a voicemail." "Jack, your sister told me what happened," she chirped. "I can't believe you threatened her like that. She's struggling, and instead of helping her, you're making things worse. You should be ashamed of yourself." I replayed the message 3 times to make sure I heard her correctly. Karen tried to steal from me, and I somehow became the bad guy. It was so absurd that I didn't answer. What was the point? They weren't going to see reason. But it didn't mean I was going to let it slide. I called my bank and asked them to beef up the security on my account. Password changes, 2-factor authentication, and other measures. I wasn't going to give Karen or anyone else another chance to mess with my finances. For a few days, everything was quiet. But if there's one thing I've learned about my parents, it's that they won't take no for an answer, at least not the first 100 times. Don't tell me in the comments that I can just say no because they don't get it. So when I got home from work a few days later and saw their car parked in my driveway, I wasn't surprised. Annoyed? Yes, shocked. Not at all. I took a deep breath, parked behind them, and sat in my car for a minute to mentally prepare myself. I knew they weren't there for a casual chat. They weren't coming to apologize or make amends. No, it was going to be another round of guilt, manipulation, and emotional blackmail. And I was already tired just thinking about it. When I finally got out of my car, my mother was waiting by the front door, looking like she was ready to deliver a sermon. My father stared at the ground, as if he'd rather be anywhere else. "We need to talk," my mother said, once I got close enough. "I don't think we do, Mom. I think everything that needs to be said has already been said." She obviously ignored me. "This nonsense has gone on long enough. We're your parents. Karen is your sister. This isn't how families behave." I unlocked the door and went inside, fully expecting her to follow me. Of course she did, with Dad, trailing her like a lost puppy. "You're just going to walk away while we're talking to you?" Mom demanded. "No. I'm going inside my house so I don't have to stand outside listening to more of your nonsense," I told her. "If you're going to lecture me, you might as well do it where I'm comfortable." She didn't like my tone, but honestly, I didn't care. She'd already breached every boundary I tried to set, so why bother pretending I was okay with it? My mother wasted no time launching into her usual spiel. "Jack, you need to stop this stubbornness. Karen is struggling, and it's your responsibility. As her brother to help her? She's family." "Yeah, family, I get it," I told them. "So let me tell you something about family, Mom. Family doesn't lie, steal, and manipulate to get what they want. Family doesn't expect one person to sacrifice everything while someone else coasts through life without consequences. Don't come in here lecturing me about family." My father finally spoke up. "This isn't about taking sides, Jack. It's about fixing things. You're the only one who can do that." I laughed bitterly. "Fix things? You mean like paying off Karen's debt? Covering for her fraud attempt? Letting her get away with everything? Like she always does." "Yeah, no thanks. I'm done fixing things for her." "She's your sister," Mom exclaimed, her voice rising. "Do you know what it would do to her if something happened? How would you live? With yourself? And how do you live with yourselves?" I shot back. "You've spent her entire life enabling her, making excuses for her, and throwing me under the bus whenever it's convenient. You created this problem, not me, so don't you dare try to make me feel guilty for not cleaning up your mess." Mom's face turned crimson. I thought she was about to explode. "If you're not going to help," she replied, "then we'll have no choice but to cut ties with you. No holidays, no family gatherings, nothing." I stared at her, trying to figure out if she really thought that was a threat. "Mom, I've been on my own my whole life. Cutting me off is like firing someone who already quit." She opened her mouth to argue, but Dad stopped her. "Carol, stop. This isn't helping." He turned to me, his gaze softening. "Jack, we just want what's best for everyone. Karen's made mistakes, sure, but she's still family. Can't you just meet us halfway? Couldn't take it anymore. Do you even hear yourselves? You're asking me to shell out $43,500 for someone else's mistakes? How is that halfway? What is Karen contributing to this so-called compromise?" I could feel the anger rising in my chest, and my thoughts were racing faster than I could speak. Every sacrifice I'd made, every time I'd stood up when they wouldn't, every instance of them putting Karen first, it all hit me at once. I pushed off the counter with deliberate movements and walked toward the door. My heart was pounding, but my face remained calm. No yelling, no arguing. They no longer deserved that much attention from me. I swung the door open wide and said, "Get out." My mother blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "Get out," I repeated. "This conversation is over. You're not going to guilt me into paying Karen's debt, and you're not going to manipulate me into feeling bad about it. So unless you have something productive to say, you can leave." Mom looked like she wanted to argue, but Dad gently grasped her arm. "Come on, Carol, let's go." She scowled at me as she walked by, her words venomous. "You'll regret this, Jack. Mark my words." I closed the door behind them and stood there. It was quiet. Finally, silence. But the silence didn't last. The whole situation had been gnawing at me, and against my better judgment, I decided to find out what was going on with Karen. Perhaps it was curiosity, or maybe I just needed to know how far things had deteriorated. I contacted a mutual friend, who still kept in touch with her, thinking they might fill in the blanks. "What's going on with Karen?" I asked. "I haven't heard anything since." "Well, the friend responded without hesitation. "Oh, you haven't heard? It's bad. The people she owes money to aren't messing around. They trashed her car, completely destroyed it. Windows, tires, everything. She's freaking out, saying she doesn't feel safe. I should have felt sadness, concern, or anything. But instead, I felt drained. She had put herself in this predicament, and now she was paying the price. Of course, I knew this would only lead to more pressure from my parents to intervene and save her. After a few days, I still had no direct contact from Karen or my parents, only silence. Seemed strange, like the calm before the storm. And sure enough, the storm arrived. A letter from an attorney. When I opened it, I couldn't believe what I was reading. My parents threatened legal action, claiming I had a moral obligation to support my family. They wanted me to repay Karen's debt, and they were ready to take me to court over it. I couldn't believe it. After everything they'd done, they were willing to go this far. Part of me wanted to chuckle at the absurdity of the situation, but mostly, I felt numb. This was no longer a family. It was a battleground, and I was done fighting. What shocked me was the sheer audacity of it all. It was almost remarkable how ridiculous this sounded. My own parents threatening legal action because I refused to clean up Karen's $43,500 mess. It was as if they had abandoned any pretense of being a family in favor of open hostility. I didn't have to think about what to do next. The first call I made was to my lawyer, who fortunately has a good sense of humor. When I recounted the scenario, he chuckled and said, "Jack, they don't have a leg to stand on. Let them file if they want. It'll get laughed out of court." Their threat never materialized, but it was a stark reminder of how toxic they were, which only solidified my resolve to cut them out completely. That they were willing to go that far was more than enough for me. I realized I couldn't leave this door open any longer, not even a crack. I'd been holding on to a glimmer of hope that we could somehow fix things, but this was the final straw. I blocked my parents' phone numbers that same day. No calls, messages, or voicemails. I went through my social media accounts and blocked them there too. I repeated the process for Karen as well. If they were going to treat me like an enemy, I'd treat them like strangers. I also had to inform the extended family of what had happened. I knew my parents would twist the story to make me look like the villain, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. So I called my cousin Caleb, one of the few family members I trust, and explained everything. "Dude," Caleb replied when I finished explaining, "that's insane. He seriously tried to sue you." "Not yet," I replied, "but they're threatening to. I wanted to give you a heads up because I'm sure they're going to start spreading lies about me." "Don't worry," Caleb said. "I've got your back. And honestly, good for you for cutting them off. They sound toxic as hell." That conversation gave me the confidence to reach out to a few other relatives. Some were supportive, like Caleb, but others were less so. My Aunt Janice, for example, was fully on Team Carol. "Jack, they're your parents." She preached, as if that excused all they'd done. "Can't just walk away from them." "Yes, I can," I replied firmly, and I have. Crossed every line imaginable, and I'm not going to let them keep dragging me down. I knew Janice thought I was a disappointment. She said, "Family is family, Jack. You'll regret this someday." "Maybe," I answered, not believing it, but for now, I'm choosing peace. However, I only experienced tranquility for a few days. Of course, about a week after blocking them, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Jack," my mother asked, her voice shrill and angry. "You blocked me?" I sighed, already regretting the decision to pick up. "Yes, Mom, I blocked you." "Why? Why would you do that?" she asked, as if the explanation wasn't obvious. "Because I'm done," I explained. "I'm done with the manipulation, the guilt trips, the lies, the demands. I'm done with all of it." She scoffed. "You're being ridiculous. Do you really think you can just cut us out of your life like this?" "Yes," I answered simply. I can, and I have. She tried to argue, of course, calling me selfish, ungrateful, and cruel, as usual. But I didn't take the bait. I simply stated politely that I was not interested in continuing the conversation and hung up. I then blocked the number. Following that, I doubled down on the no-contact strategy. I instructed Caleb to notify me if my parents or Karen tried to contact me through him, but otherwise, I didn't want to hear anything about them. For the most part, he respected it. However, he would occasionally slip in an update. Months passed, and the longer I went without communicating, the more I realized how much I'd been missing out on without the constant turmoil. I had a lot more time and energy to dedicate to the things that were truly important. Of course, there were still moments of uncertainty. Every now and again, I would hear a voice in the back of my mind saying, "What if they're right? What if you were being selfish?" But then, I'd remember everything they'd done, everything I'd been through, and the uncertainty would vanish. Until today, I had no idea what had happened to Karen. I recently received another call from Caleb. "Hey, just thought you'd want to know. Karen filed for bankruptcy." I paused for a moment to take in the news. Well, I thought to myself, maybe now she'll learn to take responsibility for her actions. Caleb responded, "Maybe, but we both knew that was unlikely." Karen wasn't exactly the type to learn from her mistakes. My parents continued their smear campaign for a while, but it appeared to fizzle out. Suppose even their most devoted followers grew bored of hearing the same story over and over. By the time the holidays arrived, I was relieved because I wouldn't have to spend Christmas pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Instead, I spent the holidays with friends from my chosen family. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells. I could just be myself, free of my parents' expectations and Karen's demands. It wasn't easy to cut them off. It was one of the most difficult decisions I'd ever made. But looking back, I know it was the right decision. Sometimes you have to. Distance yourself from toxic people, even if they are relatives. And while not always easy, it is worthwhile. Caleb still sends me periodic updates, but I've made it clear that I don't want to hear anything more. My parents were still trying to salvage their reputations when I last heard from them, and Karen was fighting to get back on her feet after the bankruptcy. I wish I felt bad for them, but I don't. They made their decisions, and now they are dealing with the consequences. As for me, I refuse to be a puppet dancing on strings held by others. I'm moving forward, and I've surrounded myself with people who genuinely care about me and respect my boundaries. I'm focusing on my career, my interests, and my personal happiness. And while I don't know what the future holds, I know this for sure. I'll never let anyone, family or not, bring me down again. Thank you for sticking with me through this wild journey. If you have toxic people in your life, I hope this story inspires you to stand up for yourself. You deserve better.